Okay.
Okay,
So
yep,
we're now
that has
recording,
started.
so we can call the meeting to order. Good.
Yep, I will call the meeting to order at 6:35. And let's see, we're going to kind of combine a few things in the agenda. We're going to start with our food service update first, and then everything continuity of learning, payroll procedure, kind of goes under or within the COVID-19 update. So public comments on any items not related to the agenda? Hearing none. Minutes from April 6th. I'll take a motion to accept the minutes from April 6th.
So moved.
Seconded. Second.
Okay. When you say second, could you say your name so Diane knows?
Nikki, second.
Thanks. Are there any changes or additions or clarifications to the minutes?
Amy, this is Elizabeth. I wonder if we could talk briefly about the electronics use policy.
You mean how it was discussed in the minutes?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. No.
It's okay.
Oh, I think you're talking about the agenda,
I'm talking
Elizabeth.
about the agenda. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's get through the minutes first.
Yeah, I apologize.
It's okay. So were there any changes or additions, clarifications to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes from April 6th, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Wonderful, thank you very much. So Elizabeth, you wanted to add the electronics use policy. Is that what we kind of talked about? The one that is still kind of up in the air?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. We fondly call that the social media policy, but
Yeah, I think the part of the problem is that it's really such a broad subject. But if you could just briefly add it onto the agenda for tonight, I would really appreciate it.
Sure, yeah, we can put it in.
Where do you want to put it, Amy?
After resolutions.
Put it where?
After resolutions.
Okay.
Okay, so I understand Craig is somewhere around in all of our group.
I saw him on.
If Craig and Dave would like to give an update on the food service, and if the rest of us could mute ourselves so we don't get a whole lot of feedback and echoey stuff. Thanks.
So we're in the second week now of hold on, I'm going to stop presenting here for a second. Could you all see that agenda when I put it up there? More or less? Okay, good. Okay, so we're in one of the biggest tasks other than trying to figure out the continuity of learning plan for education. Our other big task has been this food service, and it's getting bigger all the time. I mean, we started, I think the first day when you added up all three schools, we were probably serving under 500 meals. Now we're serving over 700 meals, and I think that's going to continue to grow. And as I said in my letter to the parents, with that growth comes a certain challenge around logistics and preparation, packaging, and delivery. Mostly the packaging has been the interesting challenge, and Craig's been really working hard on this. I know when we got back after vacation, the Friday after the first week, we did get a little bit of feedback. Not much. I mean, you don't want to go by what one or two people say, but there was enough feedback. And Anne Marie had shared a Facebook post out in Wethersfield that folks were a little worried about whether or not the quality had reduced a little bit, and people were talking about the meals arriving cool or cold. And what they didn't realize is that was actually the intent, and we never told them that these containers that Craig is experimenting with are microwavable, and I think the ones he's going to start using this week, maybe on Wednesday, are both microwavable and oven safe, as they say in the business. But Craig, do you want to talk a little bit about the challenge of packaging these meals and getting them out?
Yeah. So just to update you on the numbers. So last week we were about 665 meals a day. Today we went up to about 693, and tomorrow we're going to be at 205. So
you mean 705? You mean 705?
Yeah, 705. Sorry. So it's increasing on a daily basis. As I spoke with David this weekend, and after the response, the feedback we received last week or this week, some of it was the packaging some of it was my fault. I did not order enough packaging of the new Oliver packaging material that we're using now. It comes from Michigan, and you have to buy in bulk pretty much. They like you to buy 18 to 32 cases at a time. And I got a little bit sticker shock, I'll be honest, on the pricing, but the pricing isn't that bad. If you do it, it's 30 cents a container. So, but buying 32 cases of it at a time scared me a little bit. So I went conservative, and I got caught with my pants down pretty much. And I had to fight every day to get the right packaging for the meals. So I did a lot of catch up last week, and a lot of it was my fault, and I'll take the blame for it. The quality has not gone down. Heartland was probably the biggest, was affected the most, because the way we were running that program in Heartland was because it was just me and Emily doing it. So we were producing the day of delivery. Wethersfield was producing a day in advance. So she was always a day in advance, and they were always getting cold meals, and they knew that they had to heat up their meals. So Heartland last week, every day was getting cold meals, and they weren't ready. They weren't prepared for that. And that was, like David said, we didn't communicate well. And there again, we got called out on it. So David sent out the message today, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Last night.
And so it's the only doing 700 meals or out of one location. There's the only way we can do it quality wise, safe wise, and consistency wise is be a day in advance. So we're working on Friday. They produced Monday's meal. Tomorrow's meal, down the days. We're still using good quality beef. We're still slicing all our ham and turkey. We're using a decent bulky roll. We're making all our pasta salad. We're doing a lot of stuff from scratch. We're using fresh vegetables and fruit. So the quality of the ingredient has not changed. Packaging and delivery has changed. And we continue, like I said, 2 weeks ago, I think we need to continue to look at the small details, make it better each and every day. And once we end this thing, we're going to say, wow, we did it we were doing pretty good. But it's just the process of getting to where we want to be takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, it's a learning experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, today, and this is not an excuse, but this morning I turned my phone on at 4:30 in the morning, and every single one of my kitchen staff called out sick. It was me and Rodney today. So we went in there and I busted out 700 meals, and thankfully, Rodney's a good so far so good. He's a worker, and we produced food, and we're ready for tomorrow. But every day it's just a constant something. The volunteers for packaging food have been great. They got a good system. It's going really well. I still don't love the plastic bag. I think we really need to look into a different delivery just something that, instead of receiving it in a plastic bag. But we're working on that. And I think, me and David have been talking about it. And that is kind of my goal, to get something a little bit nicer, just to present it a little bit better than a plastic recyclable bag. But that's what we have right now, and that's what we're using. And so
when are the
all, I mean, I think it's good. I mean,
yeah. When are you getting the new containers, Craig?
The new containers, actually, surprise, that was the highlight of my day. They came in this morning.
Wow.
So we're fully, we're good for the next 2.5, 3 weeks. So we'll have some consistency on the container. It looked good. Actually, they ran out of the plastic recyclable ones, so they sent us a compostable, like a fiber-based one that's biodegradable. Same thing. It's ovenable, microwavable. So, and it's white, so it kind of makes the food stand out a little bit nicer. And it looks it's sturdy. It's a good product. So,
wow. Yeah. So did you use those today?
Yeah, today for tomorrow. Yep.
For tomorrow. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Now, do you think those people calling out sick think it was just a fluke?
Yeah, I think nobody's sick. They all had different stuff.
Issues. Yeah, issues. Okay. Yeah. Well, and the other thing to remember too is, in some ways we are down some folks, because we never replaced the cafe services employees. We were going to hire a couple of them, but cafe services pointed to a clause in the contract that says we can't touch their employees for 3 years out. And so that was too bad, because a couple of them are local, and a couple of them have done a really nice job, but it is the way it is. So there is an advertisement out there for workers. I don't know that we'll have to replace them all, but I think especially on a day like today, it would be nice to have a little bit of a backup.
Barbie and Kyle actually stepped up and helped us for a couple hours. And
wow, that's great. That's great. Yeah. We're doing a lot of cross training. Any questions for Craig on the food service piece at this point? I understand that it's a work in progress here, but I mean, Craig's a perfectionist, and he does a great job, and that's why I know he wants to hear that feedback. And I was able to get back to most of those parents and try to explain to them what the issue was last week. But I still think, given what those families are paying for that meal, it's a pretty darn good deal, I think, and I think it's all fresh product, and I think it's so well done. So we'll continue to grow with this, and I think the reason why this is so critical is we don't know how long this will go on. Will it move right into the summer program? Will we be doing some version of something like this in the fall? I mean, who knows? I mean, we just kind of take it one day at a time. Any questions for Craig?
I had a quick, just not necessarily for Craig, maybe for you. Is there like a phone number or email address that people can maybe address their concerns to rather than posting them on Facebook?
Yeah, don't you wish, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they can certainly come to Craig
You're welcome.
and me. Go ahead. Yeah,
I'm happy to have anybody reach out to me. I don't mind speaking to people. They can call me. They can email me. Email is probably the best,
Okay.
politically correct way of doing it. But yeah, I'm happy to get any feedback from anybody that has a question or concern. So pizza,
I think that's
just because pizza is a big concern right now. Everybody seems to like our pizza, and with the packaging that we currently are using, it doesn't fit a piece of pizza in there. So we resorted to English muffin pizzas this week or Friday. And it didn't go over so hot. I mean, they didn't look bad. They didn't taste bad. But it was an English muffin pizza, and that was kind of a shock to some people. So we're definitely it's gonna be again this Friday, but hopefully moving down to the future a little bit, we're gonna do like stromboli or calzones or something on the pizza line, but maybe not English muffin pizza. But
yeah.
Yeah. Some people mentioned that I guess they had trouble reheating the English muffin pizza. I don't know if we can. I don't know if you want to instruct people how to do it, but it seemed like people were like, "Oh, after I heated it up, then it was all tough and inedible." But I'm like, "Well, how'd you heat it up?"
Yeah. That's a tough one. It's a tough one. It's a good one. It's a legit complaint. On paper, it looked okay, and it made sense. But if it doesn't, we want to make sure that we're serving edible product, and we gotta hear and fix the complaint. So I might even do something quick and do something other than English muffin pizzas on Friday, because it's only Monday. There's always time to fix it, but it's good. It's good feedback.
Yeah. And
I have a question.
Sorry, go ahead, Beth.
This is Beth. I just have a question. So I think we need to start thinking about summer meals, and what does the summer meal program look like? Because that's going to sneak up on us real quick. And are we going to continue with delivery? What is, if we can, if not, so I think that's probably something to start figuring out at this point.
Yeah. Do you think we'll get some more direction from the AOE on that, or child nutrition?
I mean, we'll get direction from USDA, because if they passed two waivers, and the one is that summer meals need to be a congregate meal, and they need to be only served by schools or supervisory that are over 50% free and reduced. So if those waivers cease to exist, then we'll have a harder time, managing that probably. If they continue through the summer, then great. Like, there's no reason why we should stop, but the question is delivery or not, and if we're not delivering, how do you manage that, and how do people pick up food safely? And just something to start talking about now, so we're not caught off guard.
Yeah. And I was thinking, Craig, because I know you've got some stuff out of the state too to go over, that maybe this week we'll try to get together maybe on Friday or something and just start the conversation rolling. I mean, I think even like last summer, we operated out of Windsor again, because Windsor, was the universal site, and we were able to feed. I know we fed kids in Wethersfield because Jean Marie and BJ would come down and pick up the food. I think Beth's got a good question. If the waivers stay in place, or if we think we can pull this off, centralizing a universal meal site at Windsor, and we want to keep those buses rolling all summer, I mean, we could theoretically do that. You know, last summer we made, you know, we probably did about 100 to 100 meals, let's say, on average. I mean, if we could do 700 all summer long, I mean, that would be, on the revenue side, I can't see where that would hurt us. Do you know what I mean? I think we can have that conversation, and maybe Beth will pull, you know, because I know you stay in the loop on these things. Maybe we could pull you in to those early conversations.
Sure. Craig may need a vacation though.
Yeah, well, we did think that we'd shut down. You know, we'd shut down for a couple of weeks, or because we do that anyway, right? We normally don't start the summer meal program until the first week in July. So, but we'll see. Scott, did you have your hand up?
Yes, please. I think Craig might need an apartment closer.
Yeah.
Before summer. But you know, I'm just so pleased that a school board is having this discussion about a meals system across our 3 districts, and even to get into the to hear about, you know, the logistics is the word you use, Craig, and it's great. I'm so happy to be part of it, and you're doing such a great job. I think it's unfair for us to rely on Craig's get her done personality if he reports that he had no help today besides his number 2, and then volunteers. I mean, so perhaps this is the right environment to, you know, regardless of whether we can hire cafe services people, there are probably other people who would appreciate a job right now. So
that's a good point. Yeah, good point. Send them Craig's way.
If you know anybody, send them my way, because I'd love to talk to them.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that would be good. Hey, isn't your son in culinary arts, Scott?
I wasn't inferring that.
Well, but I am.
He is. He is. Okay.
I'm inferring it. We'll take him in a minute. Yeah.
You're gonna have to show up here.
Yeah.
And grab him right here.
Drag him off. Yeah. Just drag him off. Yeah. No doubt about it. No, I think that's great. And I'll keep you in the loop, Beth, when we get together because I agree, summer is going to sneak up on us pretty fast here. There's no doubt about it. And we also want to make sure that the kitchen staff does get a little bit of a respite here. But on the other side of it too, I mean, you know, Craig will tell you that Wendy Moody handles all the volunteers, and that's a massive job. Jim Taft has been sanitizing and cleaning, and he gets the food up out of the staging area to the bus area, and that's a big job. So everybody's pulling together, I think. And
the whole delivery, the packaging and onto the bus is flawless. Honestly, it's been really impressive on how those guys have built a system, continuously work on the system, and it's pretty solid. It's good. I'll just tell you one last thing. So I know the last couple of weeks I've been telling you about this hotel. The state reaches out to me and wants us to provide these meals to the Windsor Motel right now. So we're servicing 2 adults, homeless folk, and we're providing them a breakfast and a lunch and a dinner each day. And this baffles me about how the AOE works, but they sent me over the weekend 22-page contract to sign to be paid $1,080 for a month and a half of service for these people. Serving them 3 meals a day.
Unbelievable.
22 pages. I mean,
unbelievable.
I just have a hard time believing that it needs to be that difficult.
Yeah.
Let's just take care of our people and serve them. and give us $1,000. I mean, what's $1,000 in today's craziness?
Unbelievable. That's crazy.
So, you know, I just got the numbers today, and it's up to 3 adults and 1 child.
Yeah.
You know, they're paying, the reimbursement's great, $5 a meal, so that's good. But
Well, that's good. We'll take it.
yeah,
But it's too bad. Welcome to that world of
yeah,
bureaucracy, right?
Yeah.
And Anne Marie, I think the email out to that Facebook group might be good to let them know Craig's email. I don't quite understand that Facebook group, to be honest with you, Anne. I mean, they and by the way, it's not just food service. Every now and then they'll pop about something, and I don't think it's a huge number, but that's how they choose to complain rather than trying to get to the people who can fix the problem. But I don't know whether you reached out to any of them or not. But
No, I didn't.
they don't.
Yeah, I posted on there underneath the one that tagged me so that I saw the post. Just that I would bring it up to the appropriate people and you know, make sure that they were aware of it. And and so I'll post now saying that if you have any further complaints, you should direct them or encouragement, you should direct it to Craig.
Yeah. Are they? Is that a Town of Weathersfield official Facebook site?
No, it's not. It's actually run by a woman who lives in Claremont, but
there you go.
She runs the page for some reason, but it's her personal page that she runs. But it seems like a lot of people in town post on it and go to it and read stuff on it. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. It did seem to get kind of really petty and nasty at one point.
Yeah, well, they really social media is it's got its ups and it's got its big downs, and you know, one of the things that one of these people were complaining about, and you saw it, I think, about these couple of adult meals that are going to Windsor Hotel, and I thought this food was only for kids, and you know, I try to hold my tongue, but I'd like to say, not your business. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it, you know. But I appreciate you pointing that out, Anne, and I think if they know who to go to, you know, then that'll not that we want to flood Craig's email box, but
no, I don't think it will be. It's probably like 5 or 6 actual people. The rest of them are just other townspeople sort of chiming in that don't even have kids that go to the school. You know,
is that right? Wow, that's crazy though.
Yeah,
crazy.
And it might also be that people tend to kind of post to Facebook, whereas they're more reluctant to actually talk to another person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If they're told to do that or encouraged to do that, they say, oh, no, it's not that important, but they're really quick to jump on to trash something on Facebook. So you gotta in some ways take it for what it is.
Yeah, and then it just it went off the rails as far as like, you know, then it just got into, you know, why are we having to pay for this? And then other people are like, no, we're not paying for it. But everyone's like, well, you know, you are paying for it.
It goes on and on. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah. Craig, did you have anything else? Or are you good?
No, I'm good.
Okay, great.
As long as you guys are good. You're welcome.
And if there's nothing else for Craig, we'll let him go get a good night's sleep because that phone's going to ring.
Start over tomorrow.
Again. And
thank you all for your support.
Yeah. Thanks,
Appreciate
Craig.
it.
Stay well.
Thank you.
Craig.
Yeah. So the other part, do you want to go right to the COVID-19 update then?
Yeah, and then to continuity of learning, because that it all kind of fits together.
Yeah, those two sort of flow.
And payroll procedure as well.
Yeah, right. Those two kind of flow. And when I get to payroll procedure, I'll pull up a screen so you can see. We did have to make a couple of quick changes, but I don't think they were recommended by, again, the AOE and the VSBA. But because it's a procedure, I don't think you necessarily have to vote on it again. But I'll at least let you know what those were. But in terms of the COVID-19 update, you know, the other big piece of this, and I know Angie's still on the phone, which is why I think the teachers in general are really working hard to make this a meaningful learning experience for for kids. But clearly, you know, we want to keep everybody on the same page if we can. Well, maybe not on the same page, or, you know, but in the same songbook, if not singing the same song. But we're trying to pull that together, and we do meet a lot, and the administrators meet a lot, and they really do try to carry the word back to the staff. And I'll occasionally put out something to all faculty or all staff, which will include the support staff as well. And it seems to work. But the big piece of this was the talk about, you know, state bureaucracy, but it's got to be, we have to be accountable. We did put together I don't know how many pages it ended up being, but it you know, a fairly lengthy and comprehensive continuity of learning plan. And Angie put a lot of work into that. We've made a couple of changes to it, which Angie can go over here in a second if you want to, Angie. But essentially, on first reading, it was approved by the agency, and we got a lot of good, you know, got some good feedback. I think I might have either forwarded everybody that email, or at least let the board chairs know that it was approved. So, and it's pretty comprehensive, and it talks about everything from curriculum to instruction to assessment, and how we operate in the remote environment. And I think that that's important. And Katie Ahern, who I think is on the line, and Karen, put a lot of time into the access section of that, because we can't forget in this environment, we're still having to be compliant with all of the special education rules and regulations. They've loosened up a few things, and you know, you're able to do some stuff a little bit differently than when we're in school. But essentially, you still have to meet and be compliant with all the services that are outlined in that IEP. So I think Katie did a great job doing that, you know, doing that section, which helped Angie out a lot, because that's filled with law and regulation and all of that stuff. So Angie, did you have anything you wanted to say about that continuity plan? Or is she making
Hi,
it?
everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, yeah. So I think I talked a little bit about it. Well, did I talk a little bit about it at our last meeting? I think at the last meeting we knew it was happening, but we hadn't finished putting it together. And so there are 4 areas that the plan addresses. And now I was steeped in it like for 3 weeks. Now I can't remember. No, instruction and feedback was one of them. Communication, student supports, and FERPA, like how we were going to maintain our regulations and rules, especially for our students on IEPs. And it was truly a team effort. We met a couple of times as an administrative team, looking it over. I got some feedback from some teachers to help me make sure that we were on the right track. And then I submitted a draft, and so then we got the feedback and then I submitted it again after we had made some significant changes. We had a very robust conversation about grading and how we grade. And we were looking at grading through 2 lenses to maintain equity, and is it harmful? We don't want to hold students to the same rigorous expectations if they are unable to meet those. We want to make sure that students are getting the supports they need to be able to do the best that they can, but we also understand that that's not possible for some of our students. And so I don't want to say we don't want to hold them to the same standards, but the standards are being considered in light of the students' capacity and the supports that we're giving students. So we're not having conversations about retaining students or failing students. It's about how we're going to support students to show us that they have engaged in the learning in some way. So I really think that it has been a wonderful example of our ability to work together. Each classroom teacher and some of the specialists across the supervisory union did their own version of the continuity plan that was specific to their content area, and it was also part of, you know, what are you going to teach? How are you going to know what standards you're going to address for the next 6 weeks of school? And we also had them provide us with a in the event of illness plan. That was one of the requirements that the plan spelled out, what would happen should one of our staff members get sick and how their students would be supported. So does anybody have any questions?
Thanks, Angie. Anybody?
You're welcome.
Yeah, there was a lot of work in that, and I think the fact that it came back from the state, you know, as quickly as it did with the thumbs up was good work. We also the principals have these weekly pod meetings. Like today, Wethersfield had the K2 pod teachers, then the 3-5, then the 6-8, and they're meeting in these small groups. Angie and I usually attend. Angie's not going to do it this week, but so I'm doing it. But either Angie or me or both of us, we try to attend those pod meetings because that's where we can clarify, revise, you know, get feedback on the plan. How's it going? And so that's working out pretty well. Those pod meetings are also where we discuss specific kids who are potentially falling through the cracks, and there are some of those kids that you know, you go a few days without hearing from them, and people don't like that, and I don't like it, and so we've got plans in place, which is why we keep most of us, all of our support staff involved in all of our behavior interventionists and our BCBAs and all the people who work intensely with these groups. You know, we will refer those kids to those kids, and you know, we've even had some people making house visits. It's a risk, but you know, we do kind of go out of our way to check on these kids. So, but it's been good so far. Financially, and I think anything else on the continuity of learning plan? Okay, good. Financially, I think we were all aware, and I think we talked a little bit about this last time, but we're all aware that we're entering into some pretty interesting grounds here. We haven't walked this before, where we've had such a shortfall in state revenues. So I think we're going to have to really keep an eye on that. And Ed and I have met a couple of times. He's going to give financials this month to all the individual boards. He would have done ours tonight, but the agenda looked pretty full. I mean, yeah. So I didn't ask him to come, but he'll do it next month. He did. We are operating in the black, and the supervisory union will be fine at the end of this year because we're saving lots of money in several areas, and mostly special education, between substitutes and transportation and some of those areas. So he told me right now we're in the black, you know, somewhere in the mid 200,000 range, and he expects that almost to go up rather than to come down. So, but he'll give you a formal report next month, and he'll go to the boards this month with all of those pieces. I think, though, it wouldn't hurt us once we get the governor's final words on May 15th, which we're supposed to. We're going to get a little bit from the Secretary of Education on May 8th, but then on May 15th, we're supposed to get kind of this outline of sort of the legislative and financial future. And I think it might be good there. I don't know whether the executive committee wants to get together maybe first, and we'll kind of thumb through all that stuff and get an idea of what needs to go to the whole board, what doesn't need to go to the whole board, in terms of just the processes and plans and policies we may need as we go into the summer and think about opening in the fall. But we'll keep you posted on that. The only other piece related to the financial piece was that policy we did, and I'm going to pull it up now just so you can see it. We did this last week. Let me see if I can find the one that I want here. Yeah, there it is right there. I'm going to share that. Did that pop up? Is it popping up? Sometimes it takes a couple of
Yeah.
minutes. Yeah, so that's the one. And Scott, you, I think after the meeting had a couple of questions about this, but essentially this was a request by the federal government in order for us to keep paying the federal employees, which are all of those employees that have some level of subsidy from the federal government, including our food service workers, our interventionists. Half of Angie's salary comes out of the title grant, so that's federally funded. In order to do that, there was this recommended payroll process or procedure, or you could make it a policy if you wanted to, that they wanted us to adopt. And you did adopt that. It's reflected in the minutes. And then probably a few days after, a week after we had adopted that, we got an update. And the part that I have highlighted there in yellow is the part that was recommended by VSBIT, the Vermont Insurance School Board Trust, whatever that acronym is, after consulting with their attorneys. They wanted us to put that in there. I don't think it changes it tremendously. What it's basically saying is employees will account for 100% of their time, which they are being compensated for, essentially. And we are doing that, so it wasn't hard to put this in there. We have a schedule of every single employee, well, paraprofessional, support staff, teachers, school counselors, school nurses. Everybody is accounted for. Angie's keeping all that in a shared file. I think we might still be chasing a few of those now, but so we updated it. I don't think you have to revote on that tonight. I think the attorneys, you get a couple of attorneys in the room, and they just want to make sure you've covered all of your bases. So, are there any questions on that?
I have a question, Elizabeth.
Go ahead.
What happens if an employee doesn't provide an account of 100% of the time for which they're compensated? What happens if they don't? Are they not compensated?
Yeah, well, I think that's what's causing them to make sure they're accountable for the work that that they're doing. And I mean, and it did give us a little bit more, force to request that. Not that they wouldn't have given it to us anyway, but I think the simple answer to your question, Elizabeth, is yes. I mean, if they can only account for a half a day or 3 hours, then they wouldn't be compensated for that time, which to some degree, we've been told, especially on the support service level, and this might have related to what you were trying to say, Scott, when you contacted me later that week, that the teachers, I have no doubt. I mean, they're answering emails at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. They're putting lessons together. I really think it is the support staff. And matter of fact, Katie and I are meeting tomorrow, and one of the questions I have, we contract with a lot of HCR SBIs right now, and I just want to make sure they're all accounted for, because we just got the final bill, which carries us through till June, and I know we anecdotally have a good sense of what's going on, and but I just think that we do have to be accountable, and we'll sort through that piece. But so far, everybody has given us a full schedule. And remember, a lot of our support staff are doing the food service work, and we're counting that, even though it's quote unquote volunteer work. If they've got 3 shifts where they're working from 8:30 to 11:30, we're counting that. They put that right on their plan. So I think everybody right now is fully engaged.
I don't have a question. It's Elizabeth, sorry. It doesn't have to do with finances or payroll. It has to do with special ed, actually. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that we were moving away from that.
Do you want that document back up there?
I just have a question about how
Somebody might need to mute. Somebody need to mute? Yeah, there we go.
Are
Go ahead,
there
Elizabeth.
are there
And
cuts,
Kane's on the phone too, I think.
are there cuts being made in the special ed department that are at all? And if so, are they things that is our special ed direction going to change after this time? And have we given any thought to the degree to which our special ed department will need to be bolstered after this pandemic experience is over, and how to plan for that at all?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Katie and Karen, you're on the line. You can certainly talk about that. We have not reduced any special ed staff right now. I think the second part of your question might be the more important one, and that is what is going to be required of us for, some level of compensatory service or extended school year services, summer programs. I don't think do we have any clear direction yet on that, Katie or Karen?
We don't have any direction. This is Katie. We don't have any direction yet on ESY, extended school year services, compensatory services. We are being very mindful of documenting what students are doing and communicating with parents and trying to monitor progress as best as we can in the new environment, because we've really changed the game for many students. Because those are the conversations that go into play when we talk about compensatory services. Or summer school services. And I think the conversation has turned to summer as well as next year, thinking just solely about evaluations, for example, how our differences in how we've educated all students will then impact possible new referrals and how evaluations are done. How do we then plan for anything like this happening again? Virtual assessments. There's some tools that companies are coming out with, and so to answer, the conversations are there, and it's the lack of crystal ball yet of what it will look like past May. We're waiting and hoping that we receive some more information. The state's doing some reach out to us to find out what we're doing. That's happening in the next week, and so, and not a plan for cuts. I think your idea, the comment you meant about for bolstering, that those were conversations already in the works before COVID of how we were doing things and what people wanted for next year in terms of staffing. And I think now we're even looking at that more closely, and how it fits into a digital environment.
I also was wondering, I don't know whether this is a question for you, Katie, or for Karen, or for Angie, actually, but do we have trauma-informed training across the board at our supervisory union? And if not, then is there a plan to get that underway before the next school year begins, so that we can kind of
Get ahead of it.
Trauma ahead of us, or we're in the midst of quite a bit of trauma, and it'd be good to have everybody have the same level of training on it.
Yeah.
Funny you should ask. We have been having trauma training right along. We did a full in-service day on October 4th that all staff, well, all professional staff participated in, and some of the paraprofessional staff also opted to participate in that day. That was led by our Trauma Transform Champions. That's the team that Jennifer Aldrich is leading. They've been working hard to try to get some traction this year. We also are going to be discussing tomorrow some opportunities for continuing to build our skills across the supervisory union, collaborative problem solving. So that's coming up at our ad team tomorrow.
It seems like it would be a really great time to for para educators to have some of that training, especially if they have a little extra free time. It seems like it would be really great for everybody to have the same.
Yeah, yeah. Katie, did you want to respond to that?
It's not specific to trauma-informed training, but we are trying to build some opportunities for paraprofessionals around behavior management, under students on the spectrum, some other things we found for training that are free and accessible that we have been building between special educators giving some input, our school psychologists giving some input, and some others. So we're hoping to get that out to everyone pretty soon, because that's part of what people have been asking for. And it's a way that we can do both supervision and training in a virtual way. So a little slightly off topic, but on topic in terms of training opportunities.
Yeah, we've got people who are trained in trauma work. So I mean, we could easily talk about getting that on the list. Maybe I mean, it's not like they've got a ton of time on their hands, but I hear what you're saying, Elizabeth, that
well, I've just meant that while we have the ability to
to do it, right,
not learn on the job. I mean, I think this is going to be, as I was saying to our family, we have kind of a great scenario in which we both have our jobs, we're safe, and we still have kids who are sensitized to what's going on around them. And I don't know that there are lots of kids who have the best case scenario in our supervisory union, and they're going to have a pile after pile after pile of stressors on them that are going to last. And why not prepare our staff at every level to be able to take up some of that slack for them?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Any other comments?
David, I have a question. Who's lucky enough to have it fall on their shoulders to make sure the documentation for services that are reimbursed by Medicare, that make sure that that's all filled out properly? And I'm just so I know who's lucky enough to have that honor.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mark. I guess we'll go back to Katie and Karen, because I think that a lot of that Medicare, the biggest pile of Medicare money that comes to us is generated through special education. So Katie, do you want to take that one too?
We just got, within the past week, the guidance from Medicaid about how we are to document that on our forms, and all the special educators are making sure that everything is aligned to the detailed way that we've been asked to do it. It is important to note that everything from the time we closed March 16th through April 13th, and in our case, April 20th, because we were on vacation, is not billable. They consider us closed. So special educators and all related personnel are filling out the same paperwork we were doing before with the new types of details we've been asked. We've also moved to electronic signatures. And Betsy has been amazing in getting all of this going. So we're on it. It's been a hot topic of conversation in all of our meetings. And so it's being done. And to the best of our ability, for the next 9 weeks of school, we will submit everything. What is difficult is we're only billing for when we are seeing students, and there's going to be a change in that, because some of our types of services are not done easily remotely. One-on-one paraprofessionals, things along those lines. There are things that will be different because they're not possible in a remote learning environment, and those were things that we were previously reimbursed for. So we will see a change. I don't know if anything else, but we will see a change.
Thank you for what we need you to go through. I know it's a monumental task, and it sounds like you were just provided with some of that information recently. So hats off to you for getting it done. Thank you.
Yeah, Mark, I'm glad you asked that, because I learned something new in what Katie just said. I didn't realize that from March 16th until April, in our case 20th, was not reimbursable. So that's that's I don't know how many weeks that is. What is that? 4 weeks of lost revenue at this point. So that's good. That might be another thing, Katie, you and I put on our put on our agenda for when we meet tomorrow, because that's news to me. Not surprising, but news to me. And of course, that also goes along with, and I think Elizabeth, you asked this in either an email or maybe you asked it at our last meeting, but I really think that a lot of this is going to depend on our solvency is going to depend on the ability to get some state and federal support at the end of all of this. And I'm not sure what that's going to look like, but that's part of what we're going to hear about, I think, in mid-May. On May 15th, we're supposed to have some more information around that. Katie, I saw a question pop on from Bill. What software are we using for signatures? Are we using DocuSign?
Sorry, I was just answering Bill back.
Oh, sorry. Okay, good.
Special ed paperwork. It's in DocuSped. So it is built in. There's an electronic signature option already built into our Medicaid system. And Betsy's sending out letters, and actually I just mailed mine back today, to everyone who needs to sign a release saying about electronic signature. So it's something I've used previously. So once it's up and running, it'll be pretty cool.
I do know we did buy a subscription to DocuSign though. So and so other documents, contracts, that sort of stuff, onboarding paperwork, we're using some of that. Thanks, Katie. Any other questions? I'm just I think we're good there. So we covered food service, we covered payroll, continuity of learning, and the general COVID update. I think we're good. I mean, I think that's it for those 4 items.
Okay, so moving on, resolutions.
And I'm not sure what that one was. Did somebody request that to be on, or was that?
That has to do with the Vermont School Board Association resolutions, and whether or not we as a supervisory union board want to submit a resolution to the VSBA resolution committee.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So do you want to explain how that process works, Amy?
Sure. So if there was an issue that we as a board felt the VSBA should spend time and energy in terms of having the legislature address it, or particular guidance, because that's what the resolution system is. It provides guidance to the administration of Vermont School Board Association, so that when the legislature meets, it can, if let's say right now there's a particular resolution that says do not add anything more to the school board's, to a school district's plate than the state is willing to supply support.
Right, resources.
We've been given act after act after act after act these past 6 or 7 years, and it seems like one thing after another, and dates, you'll do this, you'll do this, you'll do this. So there is a resolution that says, just give us a break, let us catch up. So that is guidance for Vermont School Board Association administration. When the legislature says, oh, let's have an act that does this, they say, hey, wait a minute, let's just slow down and let school districts catch up with what's already there. And let's try to do the best we can with what we have instead of adding one more thing to our plates. So that's just one example. So if there was something that our supervisory union, if people were concerned and wanted VSBA to be aware of it, to bring either to the legislature or to have guidance should the legislature bring it up, then we would write something up, and there's a format for writing it up. It is then submitted to the resolution committee on the VSBA board, and they look over everything. They see the relevance of the resolution request, and then they see if there have been if there are any current resolutions that address that topic already. And if there isn't, then it gets voted on by the entire VSBA board. And if it's accepted there, then it goes on to the VSBA membership at the annual meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and the annual meeting's in the fall, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So then do you still sit on that board, Amy?
I do.
Yeah. So I think, and again, I mean, one way to streamline this might be, certainly if anybody had anything they wanted to run by the full board tonight, that's fine. But if anybody has any thoughts or ideas, you can certainly forward those to Amy.
Yeah, contact me directly, and then maybe, if it's a couple of people, we can talk about it and maybe put together a resolution, look at what's already on the books with VSBA. If it hasn't already been addressed, we can write up a resolution and we can submit it to the resolution committee.
Yeah, I know.
I'd be happy to help work on that.
I know one of the things that I've mentioned to this board before, the supervisory union board, is that we are now, if not the largest, one of the largest employers. The supervisory union, we have more employees than any of our other districts because of the special education force and handling the LEA work for all the high schools where our sending kids are to sending high schools. And so consequently, we have this cash flow. I think we've talked about this before, this cash flow issue. And right now there's a statute in the legislature that says the supervisory union, unlike local school districts, we can't borrow in anticipation of taxes. Nikki and I talked a little bit about this with Dave Ormiston, the town manager in Heartland. So it creates a problem. And what happens oftentimes is we have to go to the local districts and in order to meet payroll and ask for an early payment on our assessment from the individual districts, or it would just be so much easier. But would that be an example, Amy, of something that could go to the Vermont School Boards Association, or is that more legislative?
No, I think that could, because not only is a resolution is something to guide the VSBA administration as far as how they speak to the legislature on a particular topic, but it can also be a topic to bring up with the legislature. So that is definitely something to look at. And the worst that could happen, and this isn't saying that, is they would say that's already addressed here, or they would say, can you provide more information for us?
Yeah.
Or they would say, yeah, that's very cool, and we're going to submit it to the entire membership. Okay. So, it's worth working on, definitely.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, any comments for Amy at this point? Or I think that's the best way to do it, would be to just get ideas to Amy, and then if you see a couple of them starting to come together, we can bring it back next month. And when do these is there a deadline, Amy?
I think they start talking, the committee starts looking at things in June. And then, so right, June, July.
Over the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then kind of gets, it seems to me it's September when the entire board looks at the resolutions that have been submitted, and we vote whether or not to bring them to the full VSBA membership at the annual meeting.
Mhm.
So if we were to talk about something between now and mid-June, that would be good.
Okay, good.
Amy, I think, oh, sorry, this is Nikki. When I read the minutes, and I kind of remember this happening at the last meeting, we talked about the you doing the social media policy as a resolution, but it feels like that's a little different than a resolution. What is your response to that? Is that like,
no, that wouldn't be a resolution, but just an update. And I can't remember if I sent this out to everyone as far as an update on the social media policy. The Vermont School Board Association is working with the AOE and with Vermont Superintendents Association to create model policy around social media. So that's something that is already in the works. We can talk about our social media policy and, you know, put that together, and it can be ours. And then we can modify that depending on what comes out of the model policy from VSBA and the AOE. But in the meantime, they're still working on it.
Thank you, Amy. That's helpful.
Yeah, you're welcome. But in terms of a policy, that wouldn't really be something that we would submit as a resolution, because that's not, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's a resolution is more guidance on how we want the Vermont School Board Association to represent school boards in terms of the legislature and what the AOE hands out as far as directives.
Right.
Thanks, Amy. That makes sense. And that's why when you were talking about the resolutions, I was like, we talked about the school board policy or the social media policy, but that it just didn't jive. And so that makes sense. And I'm glad that they're on top of it, because that's really all.
Yeah, they've been working on it for probably the last 6 to 8 months, and they might have gotten a little bit derailed. And
yeah, no doubt. But, you know, just as a policy note, though, and this is, again, hats off to all those people who trudged through all those policies. You know, we had a couple of issues come up in the last couple of days, one till the end of last week and one today, actually. And it was just so nice to be able to go to that website and pull up that table of contents for the policies and click on the policy that was appropriate, and there it was, rather than try to find the right policy manual in the right building and go through the 400 pages of policies dating back to 1953. So again, sort of a shout out to Elizabeth and Nikki and a few people who stuck with that right till the bitter end. I mean, that.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks.
Yeah, that was good. And this might be a good segue into that, because it was next on the agenda where you put it.
I was going to say, does anyone have any other questions or comments on resolutions?
Yeah, Sean Whalen here.
Hey, Sean.
Hi, Amy. I always come away from VSBA meetings feeling unsure about what they do, and I feel I'm surrounded by lawyers and people who attend buffets. And
What's wrong with that?
and I just, I don't even know where to start. But one thing I've never been clear about is how do we pay for the VSBA? Where do they get the money?
Can we talk about that in another, I guess, are people willing to get sidetracked from the agenda for that right now?
I mean, I think a simple question like that is easy to.
So it's paid for by the supervisory union.
Yeah,
We paid for by individual districts, but now it's based on supervisory union level.
It would be part of the assessment.
Right, we pay dues, right.
Yeah, it's in the dues portion.
Okay, it's under dues. So if I wanted to really find out about that, I would go to I could find it as a line item in the SU budget.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, I'll look there. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But that's how they survive, and they also survive. I mean, their professional development and their conferences do make them a little bit of money, even though they do have some pretty nice buffets. Because you have to register for those conferences, and you have to pay money for those conferences. But that's how they support themselves, basically.
Yeah, they also do superintendent searches, and they have different workshops and professional development workshops with individual boards.
Okay, I'm happy to get into this more later.
Okay. Yep. So did anyone else have any other questions on resolutions? If not, we will move on to the social media policy.
We good? And maybe Elizabeth, you could, if we're going to go there, maybe Elizabeth could talk a little bit about what you've been thinking about.
Well, I was thinking that more. I was thinking more of an electronics use policy than a social media policy, and I see that those are different things. I think electronics use is one of the policies that Nikki and I shot down. I think we tore it up because it was so old that it didn't have any bearing in today's use of electronic devices. It said that there should be no use of handheld devices within the school building when actually teachers are pushing materials and assignments through those electronic devices that were banned. And so as a result, we don't have an electronics use policy, nor do we have a social media policy, and they're related. And I just wondered whether, now that we are 100% electronics teaching, whether it would be a good idea to revisit that.
I think if we did revisit it, and I'd certainly be open to the whatever this group thinks would be important, because it is different. I mean, the social media policy could include the use of electronics, but social media is different than electronic use, right? I think you're right, Elizabeth. That's a different piece. I think if we were going to look at it, a good place to start might be to look at our acceptable use procedure, which because every student signs our acceptable use, and in there are a whole lot of, I mean, I don't know whether I haven't seen one in a while. I think it got revised, but I'd like to take a look at that with Larry and see what's in there around electronic use. Have you taken a look at one of those?
Well, I think we all had to if we were going to be able to have the Chromebooks at home.
You had to sign it. Yeah.
We had to look at it, and I don't know, if you couldn't sign it on the day that you got it, then you had to send an email or some implied agreement.
Yeah, it might even be a passive agreement. I don't know, but yeah, you're right.
But those were more things like don't eat sitting in front of your computer, and don't, remember that everybody at Larry, the brothers Dower can see everything that you're looking at, and
Be careful. Hey, Bill, go ahead, Bill.
So, I think in reference to just the online social media piece, we may want to look at it in conjunction with bullying and harassment policy as well, to see how those two would interjoin somehow, because we don't really want to double up on that piece. I think the social media piece would be pretty specific for things outside of that realm. If it was going to be something different, because you have the bullying policy, you have the policy on proper use of technology. I think that would cover most of it. But I think that,
well, now we're talking about, I mean, we had things that took place during the school day and things that took place outside of the school day, and now those designations are totally gone.
right?
There's no difference now. So,
right, Elizabeth, I'm not disagreeing with you, and I'm not saying that we should. Right, we shouldn't do this, but I think it's going to take some real time to sit down and lay out all the things that we have already and anything that we want to add to cover this this concern, which is quite valid.
well, do you think we should be doing that right now while it's kind of a more of a
hot topic,
active issue?
So was that one of your concerns, Elizabeth, that because we're living now in this electronic world, that it's even more of it could become more of a priority?
It's a much higher to me, it's a much higher priority now, since the line between school and not school has kind of been removed.
Yeah.
Sean Whalen, I'm quite interested in this as well. On that, I raised it last time we were together. That school is now at home. There's a lot of issues around it, so I support trying to figure this out.
So, is it possible to have a smaller group of people, a committee, possibly 2 or 3? And I don't want to throw it on Nicole and Elizabeth again necessarily, but
they're good at it though.
Yeah, they are. But to look at the topic and sort of sweep through things and come up with some ideas.
Right. To see what we already have that's pieces of other policies, and maybe create its own little policy, see what is happening, what other districts have, see what, like pupil privacy, the harassment and bullying, and
I think this is something better pounded out with a smaller group than with
exactly. Yeah. And we could dedicate 3 hours to it and not get anywhere on it as a group. So
of course, now that I've suggested this, I would be willing to join a small group that wanted to analyze this.
Yeah, it sounds like Sean wants to be on too. Is that
okay?
Is that correct, Sean?
Yeah, as long as we get to have the soundtrack of Goldfinger in the background.
I'll make sure I start every meeting with that little tape. So Bill, Sean, Elizabeth, I would assume you'd be willing to be a part of this.
I'd be willing to do it.
Okay. Anybody else feel interested? Any policy experts out there?
If the other three are willing to cover it, I'm willing to read it when they're done.
Oh, that's a cop out. That's a big cop out.
This is a big cop.
Mark here. I'd be willing to chime in on it if somebody'd like to send me what it is we have in place already so I can look at it.
Yeah. Well, what I would do is I would probably, with this group, I would send you out. Yeah, I think the acceptable use, I'd send you out. We do have that 3 or 4 page field policy that was there. We could put out another search for electronic use policies. I mean, when we put the word out to all school districts around a social media policy, which is the one they're working at the VSBA, according to Amy, right? Nobody had one of those. So I don't think we need to go back out there again, especially if VSBA, but electronic use, maybe somebody's updated their electronic use policy recently, and we could take a look at that. I think the problem is that nothing is going to address the environment we're living in right now. And so because we've never lived in that environment, where the boundary between school and home is basically gone. So but I think that's the place to start, to see what's out there now, and then we can take a look at that, and we could call a quick hangout meeting, and I'll get the documents out to the 4 of you. I don't think we'd want to go much bigger than 4. We could probably take a 5th if anybody, but I've got Sean, Bill, Elizabeth, and Mark right now. Anybody else really clamoring to be on that committee? Okay.
I'm clamoring to know who's watching Goldfinger, because this is the part in Miami.
Are you watching it now?
I'm not. I'm in the hot tub, David, and it's snowing on me. Who's watching Goldfinger?
Okay, I am not watching Goldfinger. I wish I was.
Okay.
All right, we're good, huh? So
there is some music in the background. So.
I hear music. I do hear music.
Sean, wasn't it snowing the last time you were in the hot tub at our meeting?
Yeah, I know, but that was a month ago, and this is really ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think each time Sean gets in the hot tub, it snows.
That might be. There may be.
You gotta stop.
Let's try to find the correlation there. I think there's a correlation there. Right? No, that hot tub must be cold tub or whatever. I don't know, but all right. So I'll get something out to everybody, and then we'll bring something back that resembles an electronic use policy in a remote environment or whatever. However we want to couch that.
Great. So moving on, I think we have negotiations next.
Yeah, and I wonder if we couldn't skip over that, because I think it would be good to go into executive session quickly on negotiations. Okay.
So we'll hold off on that.
Yeah.
Next.
Wait, I've got a question about negotiations really quickly.
Go ahead.
Do we have any idea if we were to get a contract, how we would go about signing it?
Well, we're about to figure that out right now, Elizabeth, because we did finish the support staff contract. The draft is now complete, and we need to get signatures on the signature page. One of the things I thought about, and tell me what you think about this, because it'll be good practice if we happen to settle the teacher contract. And Scott, Bill, and Sean, feel free to weigh in too. I wondered if we couldn't put the signature page down in the bank and have the bank keep it at the drive-through window, and then people could drive through, sign that page, and then we'd be, because it really does need to be a kind of a wet signature, and it needs to be the one single page. How do people feel about that idea, Bill?
Well, I think that to go through the entire process, I'm assuming that you mean we're going to mail contracts to people.
No, I think she was talking about the master agreement, right? Or were you talking about individual teacher contracts? Because teachers get individual contracts. Elizabeth, you were talking about the the master agreement, right?
The master agreement.
Yeah, the union contract, right?
Okay.
That has a signature page at the end and a place for you to sign, Bill, a place for Sean to sign, and a place for Scott to sign on behalf of your boards. And Amy usually signs for the supervisory union, but Bill, you could actually sign both those lines. So what do you think about leaving that signature page at the bank drive-through?
Well, I think it's a wonderful idea. And it's sort of a central location. They can hand it out through no one has to be face to face. I think that makes complete sense.
Touch anything.
Yeah.
Right.
If they'd be willing to do it.
Yeah. And if the teachers, and that's what I'm saying, if the paras, I've asked the support staff, would they be willing? And I haven't heard back yet, but I guess, Elizabeth, that's the plan for now, to try to figure, because the office isn't open. We could open it and for a day when people could come in and sign, but we don't need to do that. I don't think, if we have that. And I think Cindy's pretty good with us in terms of using. She may say no too, but I think it's worth an ask. So we okay pushing negotiations to executive session?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Good.
Okay, so the next one, approval of support staff, that will go to executive session, correct?
Well, no, we can talk about support staff, and we put this on in case we had any new hires that we wanted to bring to the supervisory union board tonight. Any support staff we were hiring, and any special educators. And Katie, refresh my memory. Do we have anybody that needs to be approved tonight for next year? Did Katie leave us?
I'm here. Sorry, couldn't find my red button.
Or do you want to do that next month?
And let's do that next month because we have. I mean, I might not have been at the meeting where the first round of people we sent letters of intent to a while back, and then we have another round of people coming up that I've just sent the onboarding sheets onto. So I think maybe you and I should just go over the list of who's already been approved and who's not, just so I'm clear, because there's been a few. And then we can do it next month if that's okay.
Yeah, if that's fine with everybody, that's fine with me. I think we can do it in May.
Yep.
Okay, so moving on to retirements. We have, at least on the agenda, we have Mrs. Who and Margaret Russo.
Yeah, and do you or Karen want to speak about both of them? I mean, they've been with us a long, long time.
If Karen's still here, there unfortunately two people I did not get to meet, so I don't feel.
Hi. Okay, that's good. Karen, are you on the line?
Yep, I'm still here.
You want to talk about both of them?
Yep, they've contributed quite a bit to the instruction for our kids. They're pretty dedicated. Kids really love them, but I can understand why they've decided it's time to retire. So I think that they should, I think accepting their retirement with, I think gratitude would be a good way to go about it.
Yeah, and then and usually I get a little letter out afterwards, but yeah, they are both longtime employees. Karen is correct. The people who negotiated, right, Bill and Sean and Scott, you will remember Margaret because she was one of the lead negotiators at the table, and she's ready to move on, but she's been a quiet soldier, and I don't know, she's a retired Navy.
Yep, she's military. Yep.
No.
Yeah, Margaret. You remember Margaret, right, Elizabeth?
She made the perfect round cookies.
Yeah, exactly. She made the cookies, but yeah, she's a retired naval officer. I don't know what rank she retired at, but she's incredible.
Yeah, she's one of my heroes. She was.
Yeah, she ran the after-school program for years.
Yeah, well, she's been at Windsor. I first met her when my daughter was in first grade.
Wow.
So,
yeah. So I think just a motion to acknowledge their retirement with regret, and then we can get a letter out to them.
Yeah. So how about regret and the gratitude for the multiple years and the dedication to our students.
Yep.
So moved. Nancy Pedrick.
Is there a second?
Chris.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Great. Thank you.
And we do have a couple more we'll bring back next month, which will bring us to another conversation next month because Katie has some thoughts. We've talked about this during Karen's tenure as well, that we may start looking at paras who have left us, retired, and start thinking about how we want to shape those positions, whether we want to take 3 paras and maybe make them a special educator. We get more. Sometimes we get a little more bang for our buck when we have a licensed teacher or special educator there. So stay tuned, more to follow, because I think one of the things I've noticed, because we've gotten a few other resignations or retirements, surprising to me, maybe not to others, but I'm wondering if this crisis hasn't caused some of our more tenured staff, that's a good way to say it, more tenured staff to think about maybe it's time to leave the profession. I think some of them are really worried about, if they're in their mid 60s or even some of them approaching 70, whether they want to be in the middle of this environment if and when we do open up next year. So I think we're going to get more of these.
Okay. Thank you. So that will be on our next agenda. So now we are up to around the SU. If Weathersfield would be willing to just give a quick update on how life is, if you've heard anything other than the food service, since we already discussed that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have anything else to add, but I didn't get a chance to thank Craig. I think what he's doing and that service is the big lifeline that connects everybody back to this thing that we all do. That's all I've got. Ann and Mark, if you want to chime in.
Great, thank you. Nikki, Scott,
Nikki?
Is there anything happening in Heartland that haven't already talked about?
I think it's pretty much the same. I don't know of anything else exciting happening in Heartland. Scott? We had our meeting last week and it was a lot of the same topics that we're covering right now.
I agree with Nikki. I think we're understanding more and more of the gravity of the situation. That's where my conversations go with coworkers.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Scott. Or did you want to say more? Okay. So just a quick note on from our Mount Escutney School District. Well, as an SU overall, I don't know if any of you saw the front page of the Valley News. Our technology people, our IT people, were front and center. Our supervisory union is going above and beyond in providing technology resources to all of our communities. We're kind of a shining star across the state. And I don't know if any of you listened to the governor's press conference when Dan French, the secretary of AOE, spoke. He mentioned Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union as kind of the shining star, and that's probably where Valley News picked up on it too. So yay, thank you, Larry. Thank you everyone who's been working to help address the technology issues, kind of bridging all of those gaps that exist. Does anyone else from Mount Escutney School District have anything they want to add?
I really can't think of anything else, Amy.
Yeah, I know. We're all
Yeah, we did. I was going to say, go ahead, Chris.
I would, well, just to note what I've been seeing on Facebook from Colleen Deschamps and from from our principal. Just the way, yes,
Tiffany,
thank you.
Tiffany Riley,
It's late in the day, but just the way they've been starting to acknowledge and the graduating class of the high school and all of that, and around all of those things that are going on. So I think they're trying hard, and I think it's a challenge that we have to look at. But I appreciate what they're doing.
right, exactly. Thanks, Chris. Okay, so that will be on the next agenda as well, because we are up to that point in this agenda is setting the agenda for our next meeting. And that meeting is, oh my gosh, it's in May. That will be, well, it won't be Memorial Day. What if we were to, what do people think?
The 25th is Memorial Day,
Correct.
so we could move it to the 26th.
We can. Are people good with that?
Yes.
At this point, I think so.
Okay, so May 26th.
Okay, so you'll get another acceptance because it's been changed, but I'm going to do that right now.
Okay, so we have financials. Dave, you have to bring your guitar.
I can do that. We can start with maybe I can start with the tune from Goldfinger, or the song from Goldfinger.
That's it. So let me see. We have financials. Did I already say that? We will have heard more direction from AOE and how the governor is looking.
Yeah, so I think the standard COVID update
Yeah.
would be good. New hires should be on there because we'll have some of those for sure.
Okay. And probably an update on resolutions, because I'm sure that someone is going to contact me about potential resolution stuff.
And maybe
if
we'll have
not, then that will be a really quick agenda item that we can say, oh, nope, and we can move on. It'll give us a feeling of accomplishment.
Did you say policy update? I don't know whether we'll get that policy ready by then, but we could put it on the agenda anyhow.
Yeah, well, at least an update on where things stand. That'd be good.
Hi, Amy, it's Angie. I would like to put consolidated federal program grant application. We should have a draft by then. Also, I haven't talked to David about this, but there may be some policies. We have to have an updated family and parent engagement one, and I'm not sure if there's one in there.
Yeah, Angie and I are meeting. We're meeting this week to go over some of that.
Okay, yeah, that would probably be really good, particularly in light of these last few months. You know, that would be really good to look at and to see what our policy either is or isn't and how it's addressing what it needs to address. So thank you, Angie. I think that's a really full agenda, considering the fact that other things are going to pop up between now and then. So we will keep everyone in the loop of how we're doing. We'll certainly talk. We can talk about it at our individual board meetings as well.
Sounds good.
So we are up to the point where we go into executive session to discuss negotiations and staff and teacher contracts. So I will take a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so that was Sean. And
Either Nancy
okay,
or
we say Nancy.
Nancy's good. Yeah, or Scott, either one.
Okay.
And
so,
Angie, you don't. Diane and Angie, you don't have to stick around. I just want to see. I don't think we have anybody. I think everybody else is bored.
we are.
Let me rephrase.
Okay.
Let me rephrase that.
There's no question about that.
All right, bye, Angie. You can stay if you want, but you don't have to. Thank you. Have we
Yeah,
got?
thanks. So David, you have to stop recording.
Okay, that's a very good point. I like that. All right, we have